We are live for episode 101 of the Owl Triangle podcast. We're flying a little bit light today. I normally say, as always, and joined by Andy Stevenson. No Caoilte Barra today, though. He's off on his travels to Southeast Asia. He's left us, Andy. He's flew away from the nest. He's going off into the big bad world of Southeast Asia. Not maybe quite there yet, but I'm sure we'll touch base with him on the next episode. He can fill us in with all the goings on, but he'll be missed for this episode.
Yeah, it kind of feels like he's died. Yeah, like it is with a heavy heart that we announce Caoilte Barra is no longer with us for one episode of the podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, is it coincidence? Caoilte leaves, World War III potentially breaks out.
Yeah. And I have loads of technical issues to start this podcast as well too, so it's not not ideal. So maybe that's the podcast god.
I hope he gets there now in the end, because
I hope he does. I hope he does. It was bad luck. It's a bad start, but
the two of us have been just kind of wishing we were Caoilte.
Yeah, I do wish. I do wish. I'm like, oh, I'm so envious of the next couple of months that he's going to have. It's class over there. So fair play to him. I know he'll probably be listening to this, and we're here, myself and Andy. The dust has settled on the Cage Warriors 200 card, and we're going to kind of discuss our thoughts, our feelings on the card as well. Andy was there in person, did a fantastic job covering the event. All of those interviews are up on SevereMMA.com. On the YouTube channel, so check them out if you haven't already. It was a momentous occasion. It was a milestone card, and it was a huge night for Irish mixed martial arts as well. I was watching from afar here in Canada, and we're going to get right into it and discuss the events that happened in the RDS Arena for Cage Warriors 200, topped by Solomon Simon versus Nick Bagley. Obviously, Paddy McCurry taking home the middleweight championship as well. Andy, before we get into the actual fights, talk about the night itself. You're there in person. You had the view of the arena, the feel of the arena, and it looked like a pretty impressive setup. From what I had seen, look at the pictures, the atmosphere it was there, looking at your videos that you posted as well. It seemed like, it was the perfect scenario for such a monumental card.
Yeah, I think so. To set the scene, I suppose they were back in Simmons Court this time around. So we've seen them in Simmons Court before. You'll remember when James Sheehan won the title against Daniel Conrad. I think that was the same night that Paul Hughes had his final Cage Warriors fight, which was against Fabiano Silva, I'm going to say. That was the last time they were in there, except there was more fans in the stadium, or in the RDS this time. Additionally, they had, what I feel like they've done a great job of is, as events continue to progress, they listen to some of the feedback, or they have been listening to some of the feedbacks, especially from the fans around the view. So we saw the introduction of bleachers into the smaller venue. I think it's Hall 2, I'm going to say, in the RDS, which was a couple of the last events, and now we've seen them now in this event. So it seemed, when you went in, it seemed a bit bigger. It seemed like there's a bit more of a kind of a stage set from a production point of view, the area that they walked out from, etc., and some of the lighting as well. They also were kind of, I liked that they had the kind of the towels, whatever you want to call them, like it was like UFC fight pass on one side and Irish flags on the other, just kind of trying to make it more of a...
I asked Ian this. I'm going to ask you as well. How many did you steal?
I stole 2, and I listened to the Severe.
One is, are you going to send one over to me?
To say that taking a towel as it's fallen from the back of a bleacher is not stealing. I feel like we're talking gray area here. I mean, I feel like he's making
that is the exact same thing that Sean Sheehan said as well. So
no. What I'm saying is, Sean is full of shit for saying it. But I mean, I'm specifically referring to what he said in the podcast.
Yeah.
Now, did I forget because a little memorabilia, you like a bit of memorabilia every now and then. Did I forget to get one and then proceed to walk the empty, beer, possibly piss-ridden stands after the night is over to look for a relatively clean one? Who knows? Is there 2 of them currently sitting in my wash basket, still yet to be washed before I will even touch them again. Because I mean, I don't know what I'm
Hey,
cashing
when
off
you're
that.
talking about memorabilia,
Who knows?
I'm getting into like all this the King of Collectibles and all that show on Netflix too. They're saying unwashed, untouched memorabilia is the way to go. So maybe that piss stain towel may be worth
Yeah, that's
savage
really
value.
gonna add the value. Yeah,
Yeah, really add the value in
yeah,
years to come. But no, a cool little touch though by Cage Warriors. Sorry to interrupt. I just thought it was funny. I was
yeah.
like looking at it and I saw them and I was like, I would be snatching one of those bad boys. Good if I had
Yeah.
the opportunity.
Like, I think generally though, like the RDS has been a great venue for them. I feel like once you're getting to a stage though, when like I think they were, I don't know if it was a complete sellout. It's hard to tell at times. There was definitely empty seats around the place. Hard at times to tell, is that as a result of like people, with a lot of these shows, people show up and then they leave especially if their fighter loses, they sometimes leave. I feel like the crowd retention towards the end of the night was still pretty high. Obviously, well, we were in the back, so I couldn't really tell during Solomon's fight. I imagine a decent chunk started to clear out. Halfway through that fight would be my guess. But again, I'm not saying that is the case. That's me speculating. I didn't see it in the back, but I think where they're at is, I would love to see them get back. I'd love to see them. I'd love to see anyone get back to 3 Arena at this point. The RDS is great for what it is, but it does have certain limitations. Like I think they made it look really good here, but you still can tell that there's kind of that like space. It's a temporary space where you're setting up and trying to make it look cool. I think they did a brilliant job, especially on from a TV perspective. Some aspects that I think this was improved as the broadcast went on, like because it's kind of a big open space, like the sound was kind of coming through of the commentary was coming through over the speakers, but then it was like almost like a feedback loop into the production early on. But I think they fixed that then after maybe the first fight. But overall, I mean, I think for what it was, really solid venue. I would love to see them get back to 3 Arena. I really would love to see that, because it's just more of it's more of a proper arena. Like the RDS, it's brilliant in that it's versatile, and it's been helpful for them as they've kind of scaled and unscaled. What's the word for the opposite of scaling up? Scaling down. When they went to Hall 2, it was more of a kind of a
but it seems to have evolved through the events,
yeah.
where it's that, and that's where you'd have to give them a little bit of credit in terms of, they listened to some of the qualms that the fans had. And, when you and Caoilte were speaking about some of the difficulties on the early shows of the RDS, they seem to have improved on that. But I do agree. I think, that the logistics of it might be a little bit difficult too. And,
I don't think there was a bad seat in the place.
And that's a bonus. That's a bonus for a mixed martial arts event. And, I think they absolutely maximize the space. That's what it looked like from the pictures and
definitely.
As well.
I put it out there on the night, like it was the best setup I'd seen from them in the. I don't know if I said Dublin or what. In the RDS, 100% the best setup of that I'd seen within the RDS, and the atmosphere was really good. Look, I think with a lot of these cards, I don't think that you can, if we're talking say the card as a whole, I think Irish MMA is at a place where, unless you're absolutely stacking events with Irish fighters, you don't get sellouts. And I think that's been very clear in Cage Warriors strategy. And I think it'll be the same in Belfast when PFL comes to town in April, where, you have a few international fights like we saw with Saul and Bagley and Belandi and, most of them are international fights, obviously, but like a few kind of big name fights, and then a lot of the rest is just Irish guy versus fighter X. And that's what we saw. Like, it wasn't, what I would say is, for Cage Warriors, again, I'm nitpicking here, for Cage Warriors 200 show, while it did feel like a big Cage Warriors show from the perspective of having two bona fide title fights between Bagley and Simon and Macari and Belandi, it felt more like a big Cage Warriors Irish show, if that makes sense, because it's the same as it has been, like stacked with Irish talent. And look, I think there were some brilliant moments throughout. I think, with a lot of these events over the past while, with any promotion, it's the moments that I probably remember more. And maybe this is just me and my memory or lack thereof. I remember the moments more than I do, say, events in their totality. But I think we got a good mix here of big title fights at the top, huge moments there. We got a few really solid fights, and then we got a bunch of kind of filler where we have filler's the wrong word maybe, but like we got Irish guys who are, there's a clear A side and a B side, and you're there to see the Irish guy win. And that's what we saw for a lot of the performances.
Yeah, well, let's start with the main event, Andy. Obviously, no filler in the main event for sure. That was one of the best fights on paper, right? That we were talking about Cage Warriors putting on. Nick Bagley, Solomon Simon, two of the best featherweights in the division, arguably two of the best featherweights in Europe right now, locking horns. And whilst we were excited on paper, unfortunately, the fight didn't play out as exciting as we would have thought. Pretty one-sided victory for Nick Bagley, who came in and just executed his game plan perfectly and just didn't allow Solomon to kind of, get settled into the fight. And I would have thought, Sol maybe could have done a little bit better on the night. I don't think it was his best performance. Now, I mean, was it that because Nick Bagley performed to the levels that he did? Or did Solomon come in and underperform a little bit? Like we had talked to a bit with his coach, Andy Ryan, in the previous fight, didn't fight to 100%, but styles make fights, and Nick Bagley came in, and this is what we knew he was going to do. We knew he was going to put pressure on. We knew he was going to try and take the fight down. He was going to try and back Solomon up against the fence, put him on the back foot, and that's exactly what he did throughout the five rounds. It was, in my opinion, a clean sweep of 50-45 for Bagley. Solomon obviously finished the fight on top in towards round 5. But look, let's I get your opinion on the fight first. Maybe we can break it down a little bit more as a whole.
I'm on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. What I was going to say was it's easy to look at a fight after the fact and say, oh, like what a mismatch or something like that. But going into this, like, this was brilliant matchmaking in my opinion for me and Dean. It was the fight that we all were calling for, we all wanted to see, and it was that unknown of what way will it play it, and we knew coming into this that we knew the skill set that Bagley possesses. Every single fight he kind of comes out and he might strike for a little bit, but then he looks to immediately kind of use his striking almost as a smoke screen or a distraction to then level change, execute his entry, get the takedown, and then do what Nick Bagley does. And that's what he did. And the question was Solomon going to be able to do what the likes of Ben Ellis had done to Bagley previously in his career, where not accepting the position on bottom, fighting his way back up and making him pay, most importantly, putting Bagley on the back foot, making it into a different type of fight. But Bagley, he just came out and executed his game plan to perfection here. And, I thought he used his jab very well early on in the first round to kind of, he had Solomon thinking, right, we're going to strike here. And then as soon as he was given less than half a second to make that level change, he did so. He took Solomon down. And from there, that's how the fight started to play out. Solomon did a good job of getting up at times. As you said, especially late on, he landed some damage, but it was at that point, we're talking, it's been 24 minutes and it's too little too late. A really impressive performance by Nick Bagley to go in there and completely nullify Solomon is very impressive to me, because I think someone who could watch this fight, without knowing Solomon Simon, could say, oh wow, like this was just, an obliteration. Like, this guy didn't even deserve to be in the cage. But like, Solomon Simon was the champion. Like, and I know he didn't fight, the best fighter in the world to win that belt, but this was the two best fighters in the division going head to head here in the RDS. And I think for Bagley to make Solomon look so ineffective against him is incredibly impressive. Now, I know people are kind of giving out after the fact about, oh, it's a fucking boring performance and boring this, boring that, and he won't be. And they're probably right about, it's probably not the performance that'll get him signed to Contender Series.
Definitely not. Which is a shame. Like, which it shouldn't be a factor here, I guess. But it is a style that is not that fan friendly. But at the same time, too, there's no surprises there, Andy. Too, look, it's easier said than done. But you would want. We would have hoped that Solomon would have been able to kind of not accept those positions or maybe try and spring back up. And Bagley did very well to maintain that top control. I think from obviously the matchmaking and the kind of stylistic match between these two guys, the mental battle I feel was won early by Bagley, who came in and immediately landed that double leg takedown, and it was wicked fast. It's so quick the way he can kind of get down there, and he got Solomon down there like very quickly into the first round. And what does that do? It kind of makes you a little bit hesitant, and that seemed to be what Sol was on the feet maybe for most of the rest of the fight. You're kind of waiting for that next moment again, or you don't want to overexert yourself on the feet because you have that opportunity that when you do overextend yourself, you're going to leave yourself open for the double leg. But I would have liked to seen Sol tried to get off the cage a little bit more. I know he did try, but that forward pressure from Bagley, it was relentless, and it was something else. But lessons will be learned.
I think you make a good point there, though. Even on there's the physical skill set side. So you could watch that fight and say Bagley exposed a hole in Simon's game. Then he needs to be better when it comes. So for when the next time he's going up against a guy who has the skill set that Bagley has, which a lot of people do now in MMA, that kind of wrestling style, like there's work there to be done for Solomon to close that gap. But also it is an interesting point you make on the mental side, because like if you think back to when Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman rematched the first time that they fought for the belt, everyone remembers Leon's big head kick moment in the 5th round, and it was unbelievable. But the first 4 rounds looked very, very different, and it looked like he was kind of demoralized and dejected. And when you're continuously, just at the will of your opponent, I suppose, and you're doing your very best to improve your position and get to areas of your dominance, and it's just maybe not happening, that can drain your will a little bit. I don't know if that happened with Solomon, but that's definitely what I saw with Usman and Edwards.
Yeah, I definitely saw Sol being a little bit gun shy because of that. Look, we see that. It has been a trend in other fights like that too, when somebody is threatening him to take down. And but look, Solomon's only 7-1 now. This is his 8th professional fight. Like there's plenty of time to learn. There's plenty of time to grow, and I would be shocked if he didn't find himself in another title fight in Cage Warriors. Obviously, look at the dream of the UFC is put on hold for now. He had a good post after the fight. He acknowledged that he needs to be better.
Classy guy, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely classy. I mean, look, we've had him on here on the podcast multiple times. That's not by chance. He's a great guy. He always gives us good time here on the podcast. He always is open and honest about how he's feeling. And the class was always there. And I like the intensity that he had coming into this fight. And, I just think that the intensity was a little bit higher from Nick Bagley, but that can happen too, right? Nick Bagley is a tremendous fighter. But look, it'll be interesting to see.
It will. It'll be really interesting to see, how he rebounds from this. And I think that there are like some fighters will just go off the deep end, to be honest. Like it depends on the type of characters the wrong word, the type of maybe personality that you have, where some people could just really, really go the wrong way. But my read on Solomon anyway, I'm not like, it's not like he's my best mate, or I don't have like in-depth knowledge, but from what I've seen from Solomon and what he's kind of talked with us about, is he's an introspective guy. He's a guy who will, there's no real, or I don't think there's an ego about him at all. I think he'll look at this very objectively, very matter of fact, and look within to see, right, what is going on wrong here, and where do I need to improve? Because like he's always kind of talking about, I notice when he talks about fighting, he doesn't really just talk about fighting. He talks about himself as a human being, and as a father, and as a partner. It's like, it's the development of himself, of getting very philosophical here, of self, rather than just, I want to be a better fighter. And I think, when you're when you're going to those levels, you're bound to be able to improve and look very honestly at your you know what happened on the night, and then how you move forward so it doesn't happen again. So I don't think this is the last we've seen of Solomon whatsoever. I know you've already said that there, but like it is going to be very interesting. You know, you watch a fight like that, you see someone get dominated, and it's very easy to just dismiss someone then and say, oh well, you know, they lost, and so you know what's going to happen next. But I think it makes it even more interesting to see how Simon does respond here, and I think, you know, I expect to see bigger things from him in the future.
100%. You're talking about the mental side of the game. You know, something that Paddy McCurry talked about too was the mental side of the game, and big switch ups in his life, big switch ups in his mentality, and obviously the big mental hurdle that he had to get over in, you know, failing to get into the UFC through Dana White's Contender Series. And, you know, what we saw in the co-main event for the middleweight championship of the world was, you know, Paddy McCurry 2.0, for lack of a better term. You know, he spoke to us, Andy, about, you know, the changes he had made in his life outside of the cage, his new dedication and commitment to what needs to happen to become a world champion. We got a glimpse of it, obviously, on episode 99 of the Auld Triangle, where he did speak about that, and the result was fantastic. 2 minutes and 28 seconds into the first round, Paddy McCurry goes out there and he knocks out Dario Belandi, and he becomes a world champion for the first time. And it's a fantastic story. It's a fantastic performance. And, you know, we had been following Paddy for quite some time, you know, in his amateur, his early professional career, and we always saw that potential there, right? And I think this was him at his very best, and that's the level of performance, and that's how dangerous he can be when he's at his very best. And, you know, it's just about maintaining that now for the foreseeable future. But let's not talk about the future. Let's talk about the fight. Belandi was no easy cookie to get out of there, man. We said that before the fight, and the level of performance that Paddy put on was absolutely sensational to go out there, not just to get the win, but to do it, you know, without taking any damage, and just getting that knockout so early in round one was, you know, unbelievable, and it was the story of the night for me.
I think I looked ferocious. Like, I think it's really easy to come in, not easy, but like it's easy. Yeah, fuck it, it's easy. It's easy to come in and say, you know, I'm dialed in. I've made these changes. You know, you're going to see the best version of me and the new me. But then you have to go out and show that. And I think it was on full display in the fight that everything that Paddy told us in that episode was true, because he looked sharper. He was, I thought it was the best shape he ever looked coming into a fight. The hand speed and the ferocity and just everything just kind of looked tighter. Like, I say it almost every episode. I know very little about the ins and outs, the technical ins and outs of fighting, but even to me as an onlooker, it just looked tighter. Like, it reminded me of Paul Hughes a bit. Right, Hughes is a very technical striker, and especially when he's throwing those hooks, it's all kept nice and tight, nice and in close, and it's not a big winging hook. And I think that's what we saw from Paddy, and especially, you know, no more so. Obviously, he did some damage early with the low kicks, but that, you know, we don't have to talk a huge amount of the fight because it only lasted 2 minutes 20 seconds. The way that he landed, you know, what Belandi was doing was Belandi was looking to push Paddy back against the cage and fight on the front foot, and very quickly Paddy was able to. Okay, he was backing up, but he was peppering Belandi as he would enter. And then he started to get the read. And then 2 minutes into the fight, Belandi kind of shuffle steps forward and looks to start throwing. And as soon as he enters, he lands a lead right hook, which was crisp, clean, and follows it immediately up with like a crazy quick uppercut and the overhand right to put him down. And it was, like, I know we've seen big shots from Paddy before. You know, we've seen him put guys out. We've seen him with flying knees and stuff. But that was like the cleanest combination I think I've ever seen him throw. And it just so happens that it won on Saturday in the RDS.
Yeah, 100%. I think, you know, in terms of what you're speaking about with Paddy's striking is, you know, sometimes you can probably be a little bit over aggressive where you're trying to find the shots rather than, you know, allowing those sequences to play out and letting the shots find you. He found the spaces, he created the angles. I mean, his statement to you after the fight, he created more angles than a protractor. Like, I mean, come on, that was unbelievable. And it's true though, it's because, you know, he is a guy that is an unorthodox striker, but when you can throw that technical side into the kind of orthodox nature, it creates those unusual angles. It creates that unusual shot. And, you know, the final shot that put Blandy down on his ass was the overhand right, that looping right hand. And it was a beautiful shot. And it's not easy to, you know, really hurt somebody. And it shows the power that Paddy has as well. Like when you have those looping shots, and you know, normally you'd stun, but obviously the couple of shots came before from McCurry too. But wonderful combination, and then obviously the killer instinct that we've seen from Paddy McCurry is still there, and you know, the skills have been there as well. You know, I always, you know, not to ram on about it all the time, but you know, the skills can be there, and the mental side might not be there. But you know, when Paddy made it click this camp. And you know, you talk about some of the heartbreaks of fights, and you know, we're talking about a heartbreak of a fight. He won the Dana White Contender Series fight here, like, you know what I mean? It's kind of, obviously it felt like a loss and everything like that, but it's a blessing in disguise for him. And this is the result. You know, if he can come out and he can continue to maintain the level of performance that he did at Cage Warriors 200 for the next couple of fights, he's in the UFC. No problem, no doubt about it at all, and he deserves to be there too. A phenomenal performance, and you know, a great moment too, seeing him become that middleweight championship. He got to live the dream there, but for me, it's only the start of the journey here for Paddy McCurry.
Yeah, and like the first guy to finish Belandi as a pro, you know, I think it also needs to be like that needs to be focused. It's like this guy, it wasn't just some guy. Like, he beat Dario Belandi, but Dario Belandi's been the Cage Warriors champion for a number of years. He won the title back in 2023. So, you know, this is a guy he's been the Cage Warriors champion for 2.5 years. He defended it successfully against Robin Roos. He defended it successfully against Kanasauskas. And Paddy just destroyed him. Like, he just went in and ran through him. To do that, is such a statement performance, especially after the heartbreak. And he spoke, you know, I just love when fighters are vulnerable and honest, and they just don't give a shit about, you know, they're just speaking from the heart. And Paddy does it all the time, but he did it again on Saturday night when I spoke to him after, and like the heartbreak of that. And this is probably a conversation for maybe later on when we're discussing some of the other kind of topics. But like, the sport has changed. The sport has changed so much. It's not like, as much as people want to say this is sport, it is ish, but it's not just sport. Like, it's just not. And on the prize fighting side, if you want to call it that, or the you know, the entertainment side, Paddy delivered in spades on Cage Warriors 200. So, you know, I just feel like the conversation will shift for him towards, you know, is that enough for the Contender Series? Is that enough for the UFC? I mean, that has to be enough. Like, when you can show that you can win dirty, you can win on a bad night, you can win when you've been rocked, and you can grind out the decision, you can get the big flying knee stuff, you can get the big right hooks, and then you can go in and take out a guy who hasn't been taken out ever in that fashion. He's lost, I think, once previously as a professional in a decision. You get him out of there. He's been champion for over 2.5 years, and you take him out in 2.5 minutes off the back of, you know, being told no by the UFC, despite winning, as you said, despite now being on a 4-fight win streak. I think it's like a 6 or a 7-fight win streak outside of, or I think it's a 7-fight win streak outside of Tough. Obviously, you know, they're always a weird one because they're exhibition, but like, what more do you got to do? What more do you got to do? But as always, this ain't just sport. And he might have to go win more, and he might have to.
It's timing too, Andy. You know, I mean, they're not going to be matching. They're not going to be matching for probably until June, maybe, for the Contender Series. They'll start matching then. So, you know, there's another Cage Warriors Dublin show that's supposed to be in around, you know, the spring, summertime, maybe. But the other factor of that too is that, you know, you want to be going in there and when you're fighting those difficult fights, be earning the money that you should be earning as well. And obviously, that's not something that's not going to happen at Cage Warriors. You're going to need to move.
Not bad.
Yeah, well, he definitely got looked after. Definitely, that was a bad example for Cage Warriors 200, but
that's a one-off prize. That's not his purse.
Yeah, that's not his purse. No. So that's it. It's like you have to kind of. That's a decision he's going to have to make now. I'd love to see him on another Cage Warriors card. I'd love to see him in the UFC as well. I just want to see him active, right? When he's active and he's in those camps and he's learning, he's growing, he's finding, he's sealing.
I think he'd be brilliant in as in from a personality perspective. I think he'd be a great addition. Middleweight.
I'd love to see him go straight in. It's like it's kind of like you're talking about the change in the landscape now, and I was listening to Sean was talking to James Gallagher, and he was talking with the UFC, and he was told, we'll get you in at last minute there, but that's always an option in the UFC, but that opportunity might not come either. So you might have to go. I'm not going to get into a Dana White Contender Series rant here now. Again, I just wish that if Paddy had been straight in the UFC and he had won that Dana White Contender Series fight, that's him going on to the second fight of his contract now. Instead, he couldn't get the finish. He didn't get the opportunity to go in. And I'd hate for him to be in a scenario like that again. I don't think it would happen. I think his mentality and the mentality shift that he had coming into this fight is definitely enough, I feel, to take him over the line if the Contender Series came again. But yeah, you just never know, man.
Yeah.
You just never know.
It's just such horseshit though, because if your fucking job as a UFC matchmaker is to go out and find talent, you've seen the talent literally on your doorstep in the Tough House, and then you've seen it in Contender Series. So, okay, and if you decide, you know what, Paddy McCarry, not for us. See you later, pal. Good luck with your career. Cool. But then to if you go and watch him put on a phenomenal performance where he does everything, the type of fighter that you want, where he has a decent walkout, he speaks well, he brings a personality, he's got the crowd chanting, "Oh, Paddy McCarry," from the opening bell to the end. He goes out there, puts on a highlight reel performance, has this amazing moments that people are talking about, and then you can talk after the fact. And then if you want to turn around and say, you know what, pal, well done, you're back on Contender Series. What the fuck is scouting? Scouting is, do you want this guy or not? You've seen him on Tough. You've seen him on Contender Series. You should have seen him in Cage Warriors. You should be able to make your mind up. And I know I'm yelling into an abyss right now, and I'm yelling to the choir.
It's not going to happen. It's just it's sad. It's sad.
Listen, if it's not in the UFC next, the only thing Cage Warriors should be thinking about, I'm a dub. I love Dublin. You got to go to Belfast. You got to put a show on in Belfast, and you need to put Paddy McCarry in the main event, because I think you could make a special moment there. You've got a bunch of other fighters, obviously, that you can get on that card. You can get the dubs up. You can get people from around the country. I would like to see him headlining in Belfast for Cage Warriors, if that is a possibility. I'm not overly familiar with the fucking Devonish is a bit small for Cage Warriors, but there's a lot you could do there.
The Odyssey again, wouldn't you?
Yeah, maybe. I don't maybe. Yeah. I can't remember how many thousand that was. You might have a better chance of selling it to. I don't know. They'll need to figure that out. But
look at the traveling Belfast crowd come down to Dublin for him as well, and look at if it's if whatever it is next for him, I think go out there, stay finishing fights, and that's that should be enough to kind of get you to the dance. But he definitely deserves to be there, and it was a great performance, a great win. And a great moment for Paddy McCarry too. We can kind of get caught up on what's next and I suppose that's our job too. But I think the moment was a real good moment for him. The aftermath in the gym, everything like that. It was pretty cool to see. Moving on. Leon Hill versus Aldo Pereira. Leon Hill going out there, puts on another good performance, Andy, and gets another finish here too. When you're talking about what you need to do to try and get into the Dana White Contender Series, to try and get noticed by the UFC matchmakers, Leon Hill is definitely ticking off all of those boxes as well. Going out there and getting finishes. Looked really good and in control throughout this fight, landing his shots, didn't rush anything, found the finish in round 2 as well, and put away Pereira pretty impressively, in my opinion.
Yeah, another really strong performance from Leon Hill. Obviously, we spoke with Graham Boylan in the lead up to the event, and he was kind of the one that Graham had earmarked outside of the title fight. So there's clearly a respect and a focus from the top brass in Cage Warriors for Leon. We saw him put on a phenomenal performance last time out in Dublin when he headlined and had that that amazing moment, hopping the cage into the crowd, giving it socks. He goes in here against the guy. He spoke with Paul Brown after the fact. He was saying that the low kicks early on from Pereira were kind of just they, I don't know if it gave him a bit of bother, but like gave him a little bit of pause. So he was trying to like bide his time and break him down, and that he did. I feel like he, it was I think they said like death by 1,000 cuts on the broadcast. This one we'll talk about later on, I'm sure. Andreas Binder and the two lads were from the same camp. Both felt quite similar in that very different sizes. One was a shorter opponent versus a much bigger opponent, but kind of always dangerous, but always also like playing possum, kind of, if that makes sense, where you never want to be going all in, throwing your combinations, because they might just be waiting for that one opening, because they know they have to bide their time for that one shot, whereas you're kind of flowing a bit more freely in there. And that's the way it looked to me, is that Leon was the better fighter in here. I think he knew he was the better fighter in here, and he systematically broke Pereira down. Obviously got him out of there in the second round. Landed a lovely hook to the body, and then a knee up the middle, landed on the head. He went down, and then the referee, I think it was Rich Mitchell or Daniel Mavahedi, I can't remember, stepped in and waved off the action. And look, he's now 10-2 as a professional, 100% finish rate. Obviously the pro debut back in 2020 was, when we talked about loads on short notice, he jumped in against Josh Onworthy, took a break after that. He had some issues with concussion that he spoke about. But since then, since 2022, he's been active, and he's gone 10-1 in that period. 5-fight wins or 4-fight win streak now. And this is where, I was kind of talking earlier on, we've been talking loads about, and I've been talking loads about this welterweight division. I don't think Leon Hill cares about the title. No. I don't think Leon Hill, at least right now, he spoke to Paul Brown after the fact, and he was like, they're going to start matching in the summer. I've got a few holes to fix. I've got a few, niggles to look after. I'm going to look after myself and be ready. And I think this is where we get into the conversation, and this can be a really broad conversation around, is MMA actually a sport? And the answer is it's not just a sport. It's so much more than that. Like, the Cage Warriors belt once meant something, and it was this prestigious thing. Everything has shifted now. We've talked about this with Graham Boylan. We've talked about this amongst ourselves, and we've talked about how, when we're looking at other fighters, and maybe we're talking about them in September time, and we're saying, oh, well, there's going to be no opportunity until next year for them to get to Contender Series. Well, this is the reality of the fact, is that you've got guys now like Leon who's saying, no, hang on. Well, this is what I think he means. I'm not saying this is exactly what he's saying, but he's basically saying, I've no interest in fighting. I don't think he's any interest in fighting, one of the top contenders right now. I don't think he's any interest in fighting for a title right now. And I don't think that's because he's afraid of these fights or fighting for the title or anything like that. I think it's because he's thinking the best route to get to the UFC is finishing guys and then going out there and being ready and available in the summertime. And I think that's exactly what he has done for the past 9 months.
100%. Yeah, I think, and that's, that's the way you have to do it. I think, and to play devil's advocate, another route could be is just putting yourself in there with some of the best in your division and Cage Warriors and stuff like that, and getting those tests as well. But I mean, yeah, it's, I don't disagree with what Leon is doing right now at all. I think it's very smart. I think a lot of other fighters are doing that way too, and it's exactly what the UFC are looking for as well. I mean, the selfish side of me will go out and tweet, I want to see Leon Hill versus Adam Darby next, right? Because I think it's just a phenomenal fight between two top prospects. But that's easy for me to say. I think Cage Warriors are steering away from those kind of fights where we did once see the best versus the best. And we do still, we saw it in the main event at Cage Warriors 200. We're seeing Burlinson and Clancy Jr., but there's a lot on the line for these fighters. And, you want to try and reap the financial rewards here. And I would say, who are we to try and say otherwise? Look, I'll say what I want, and you can say what you want. But I think there is another, going out and finishing fighters and stuff like that, and getting those wins, getting those finishes is one thing, but there also has been other fighters that have done that and gone to the UFC. And then, that's when you're fighting, you see a big jump up in class when you come to the UFC there as well. I think there's, and I'm not even mentioning Leon here specifically, it's just because we're on it. It just spurred the thought for me. I think, getting to the UFC is one thing, but staying in the UFC is another thing too. And you need to have a certain level of test. I think, Paul Hughes did that. He fought the very best in his division. Obviously, he didn't go on to the UFC, but he would have went on and been successful in the UFC. We've seen how successful he has been in PFL. And, I think that was kind of the mentality that he had before he made the move to the big show. But, every fighter is unique in how they want to kind of approach this. And I would give maximum respect to Leon Hill for the way he's approaching it too. It's very smart. And I think that he is primed to get a shot in Dana White's Contender Series as well.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct in what you're saying there. But like, even, a man who was on commentary on that night, like Mason Jones, like he fought Donovan Desmay, he fought Mantekivi, he fought John McColgan, he fought Adam Proctor. So like, there's different ways of going about it, and that stood to him. And then he gets to the UFC and he has a couple of losses, and he comes away from the UFC and he goes back to Cage Warriors and he goes on a run again, and now he's back in the UFC and he's beating Jeremy Stevenson, he's beating these other guys. And but just to be clear, you are absolutely right to want Leon Hill versus Adam. If MMA is pure sport, and from a fan base perspective, 100% I want to see Leon Hill versus Adam Darby. Of course we should want that. That is a huge fight in Irish MMA. That is a fight that we should be like, that people should want from a sporting perspective. I saw Leon put out a post where he was kind of it doesn't address exactly who this is directed to, but it kind of says, these media people make me laugh. Fought a lad that hasn't been finished in 6 years by tough opposition and has over 22 professional fights, and they say I need someone more with a name to push me on. Same lads don't know what it's like fighting for peanuts and trying to be smart to progress at that level. And that last line, I think, is where he's coming from. Like, this is a guy who has slept in the gym, like literally slept in the gym, who is kind of sacrificing his being in search of a better life for himself. Obviously, there's a sporting aspect to it too, where we'll want to go to the UFC, we'll want to be UFC champion, all that stuff. But when you're struggling and when you're on the grind and all that, it's fucking tough. And I don't know what that's like. So from his perspective, he wants to change his life. The same, I spoke with Kenny Mukanwana. He talked about going from making 20 grand to 1,500. Like, this is why it's kind of like, we get into this conversation around, we can look at things from a sporting perspective, we can look at things from a prize fighting perspective, we look at things from an entertainment perspective. And a lot of the times they don't mesh. So from a sporting perspective, I want to see Leon Hill versus Adam Darby. I want to see Leon Hill versus Andreas Binder. I want to see Leon Hill versus Anthony Orozco. I want to see Leon Hill against any of these guys, because what it used to be about in Cage Warriors was sport and the title. And I don't think it is about that anymore. And I think Graham has basically said that to us on the podcast. It's about getting guys to the UFC. It's about, when it's the right time to do that. So,
which what Cage Warriors have always been about, Andy, if we're being honest, it's just the path to the UFC is a little bit different than it once was before, where you used to go on the run for the title. That title would be the ticket to get to the UFC. That title is your ticket now, sometimes to get to Dana White's Contender Series, perhaps sometimes straight into the UFC, but more so a good win streak, a good finish streak is enough to kind of get you noticed by the matchmakers. And that's the world we're living in right now. We'll move on to the next one. We're only 3 fights deep and 45 minutes in.
I was like, we'll do a quick 45 minutes.
45 minutes. We'll get through.
We might have to scoot through some of them.
No, we'll scoot through a couple here now. Let's talk about, let's keep it in the welterweight division. Let's talk about Adam Darby. I think this is a pretty easy one to kind of assess. 1 minute and 22 seconds. A ninja choke, ninja face crank, whatever you want to call it. But Adam Darby made easy work of Thiago Habib. And, not too much to say about this. I think the class that Adam Darby has shown, obviously, he was an emerging prospect of the year for SevereMMA in 2025. He went out and showed exactly why, and got the job done relatively quickly. And yeah, impressive performance here. And on to the next one for Adam Darby.
Really impressive. Like just as soon, I thought it was probably an awkward style for him, given like he's so used to fighting guys who are so much shorter than him. So to be going in against, a guy like Khabib, who is quite tall, basically the same height. Bit of a frantic start at first. They both landed, and I think Darby, settled in pretty quick. Obviously, Khabib looked to wrestle on a single leg pretty instantly, and Darby just snatched the neck. I think he described it to me as a ninja face crank choke was what he said. Don't know if that's the technical term or not. Who am I to argue?
It is whatever they tell you it is. That's the way I know.
Listen, I ain't arguing. Yeah. But it looked, because it looked like I think they called it a guillotine choke on the broadcast, but it definitely looked like a ninja choke at first to me. But then obviously it ended up on the above the not quite on the neck. But look, I suppose the conversation we just had there about Leon Hill, what Darby came out after this fight, he's 7-1 now. He's on a win streak. He's had that one loss where he got knocked out a number of years ago now in Cage Warriors. He is actively telling everyone, us, I think the matchmakers, he's saying it in the lead up, he's saying it after the fact. His coach is telling us he wants the tough fights. And I know I asked him, Andy Ryan obviously said he wanted that Leon Hill fight. I asked him about it after the fact, and he said, look, it's not about Leon Hill. He wants Leon Hill or Del Valle, Clancy, Burleson. He wants some of the guys who have been competing actively in Cage Warriors. I know he kind of dismissed Binder. I think Binder is being unfairly dismissed. You can say whatever you want about making weight and all that stuff, but this is a guy who's an NFL two-weight champion, has fought on, he went to the Ultimate Fighter and stuff. He has a resume behind him, not in Cage Warriors, of course, but I'm not sure if that necessarily matters. But anyway, Darby wants one of the guys for a title fight, so that is sport. Darby wants sport. For his route, he wants to go down and fight the top guys in the division, the top names, and then look to move on to the UFC after. And that's where, when we have all these different lanes that you can be in, okay, maybe Leon Hill's lane is he wants to doesn't give a shit about who he fights, just wants keep giving me fights, let me finish them, go out there, show up his class, move on to the UFC, and then maybe take a bit more of a gamble because you haven't fought, the absolute top contenders in the division. So it is more of a gamble of the unknown. Maybe look, I can handle these welterweights, no problem. Great. Darby wants to go a different route and fight these guys. So Cage Warriors have to provide that now, in my opinion. If he's asking for it, then make this about sport. Make the title worth something and have him fight someone in a title eliminator to go earn his shot at that belt and then see what happens. But there's got to be that route too.
Yeah, it's easier said than done. It takes two to tango as well, right? So, it'd be interesting. Like, there are not too many. Like, if Leon
Darby versus Binder.
Darby versus Binder is the way to go, but Binder had an excellent call out with Michaelis. I think that's a great fight as well.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard that fight's not happening, but we might talk in a bit. I've heard Binder is looking for a quick turnaround.
And I think a quick turnaround would be great for him as well. Look at it. We'll talk. Let's just finish off the main card here. Let's go circle back around to the flyweight division. Tanio Pellericchio got the split decision win over Jared Harris. There's no Irish bias here. Watched the fight, watched it back. And, to me, I scored a 29-28 for Jared Harris. And I think he can be desperately disappointed that he didn't get it done here. It was a really close fight, that being said, but I think that Jared Harris did enough in this fight to get the scorecard at 30-27 for Pellericchio. I don't know where it came out of it. I don't know how you could watch the fight and not score it for Jared. It was a nip and tuck fight. I think, the first round definitely Jared took. The second round for me, Jared took. And there's an argument that he took the third round too. Now, I did score to Pellericchio, but for me, there was more of an argument of a 30-27 for Jared than there was for Pellericchio. So this is a tough one for Jared, Andy. He's 6-4 now, and that's not the skill set that he's bringing into the cage here. And it's, you're talking about, MMA being cruel. It's been a tough one for Jared, and I hope that, that could be a soul crushing loss. He's coming back, obviously, after that defeat and had a good win in his last fight. He's trying to bounce on here. A win here could have, propelled him up into title contention, if not a title shot here as well. And, gets done at home by the judges on the scorecards, and just hopefully he can pick himself back up and get back in there and get back on the win column again. But this will be a tough one for him, won't it?
Yeah, and maybe this is one of the fights as well. Like coming into this, we probably this is actually one of the better matchups on the card here between Harris and Pagliaruccio, and I think the lads at the table are Brad Wharton, as he was kind of calling them out, like big implications for the division for regardless of who won. It's really tough because I feel like with Ger, he's just got to get the consistency. Like he's just got to, and to your point, like I definitely thought he won the first round. The 30-27 is a bit perplexing. Obviously, I saw Ben Cartilage scored a 29-28. I respect Ben Cartilage's, usually if Ben Cartilage is saying it, I just assume it's correct.
Ben Cartilage is one of the best judges in the world.
Yeah.
He's over there at the UFC events. You know what I mean? So when you're seeing him scoring a fight like that, I mean, that's enough for me I'm looking at the fights. I'm trying to judge and score them myself. And I'm definitely looking at Ben's cards to, see if I'm close. If I see my card is different than Ben Cartilage, I'm not thinking, or any judge really, to be honest, at a high level, I'm not thinking that they got it wrong. I'm thinking, oh, should I be looking at this fight in a different way? And I guess it's hard for us as well when we are talking about judging, when we're talking about Irish fighters, you have that kind of underlying maybe connection to them, because we talk to these guys, we talk about these guys. I always try to call it down the middle, and I scored a 29-28, and I was glad that I felt that my score was justified when I seen that scorecard from Ben Cartilage as well. A 29-28 Pagliaruccio, I could understand that, but not the 30-27 for me.
Yeah, and I mean, like it was a fun fight to watch. I would love to see. I feel like Ger Harris is the type of fighter who, at some point, just something's going to click where he goes on a bit of a run, and I think that once that happens, and I think that a lot of this will depend on how he deals with this loss, because he's talked to us about kind of the party side, and you'd worry a little bit that a loss like this, especially when it's tough to take a loss, but when you're on this kind of run where he had the win over Johnny Tuma last time, but he's now 1-3 in his last 4. That's a tough spot to be in, and I'm sure from a mental perspective that's difficult to deal with. And it might be appealing to kind of just looking away from your trainer, looking away from the sport a little bit. Like, it just this stuff happens, and I would be a little bit afraid of that with Ger. But I think if he can really just double down on himself and on his training, and that's very easy for me to say as someone who's not training and not putting the blood and sweat and tears every single day and the stress and all that goes behind it. But I just feel like at some point, he's got the skill set, I think, to really make a run. He's got the style to put a beating on guys, and he's got the personality then to stand out. And I think there's a diamond waiting to be polished there with Ger Harris. And I know it's less common in this era, but you did used to see a lot of these type of guys where they've had patchy records, let's say, early on in their career, and then all of a sudden they go on a streak, and then they have a 5-fight winning streak or something like that, and they get picked up by the UFC, and all of a sudden they're off to the races, and that's all forgotten about. And I think that's a possibility for Ger, but right now we're just not there. But again, as you said, controversial decision, so we can easily talk.
Also, one of those losses it was against Joanne Scott, another split decision as well.
Yeah.
So
you could be looking at, I'm after saying, he's 1-3 in his last 4. He could be 1, 2, 3, 4. He could be 5-1 in his last 6.
Yeah, that's just that's how close it can get when it comes to MMA, and how tough it is when you're just on the wrong side of a split decision there. Look at back to the gym, back focused on the next fight, out there and get the win. That's what Ger has to do. He definitely does have the potential. I think, at this stage too, what you have to be thinking is that he's only 3 wins away from getting a title shot still in Cage Warriors, right? So, if it goes out there and his next 2 fights are 2 really, really good wins, he could propel himself in there, So the opportunity is there to get him back. He's not too far away. I think Paluricio is a great fighter as well. And I thought he fought well. I just personally thought that Jared had done enough in that fight. And yeah, it'll be on to the next one for him. Max Lally went out there. Max Lally from SBG Charlestown, coached by Owen Roddy. I'll never make that mistake. Oh, I did. I got a message. Yeah, I got a message. Colossal error there by me, but whatever. You just get sucked into conversation sometime. But he put on a fantastic performance here. 6-0 now. He moves to a guy that just takes everything in his stride there for the cool calmness and composure, something that we've seen from the very early stages there from Max Lally, even when he was in the amateur ranks. He goes out here, gets another first round win, secures himself an old trip over to the UFC PI, and a real strong upward trajectory here in the 145-pound division for Max Lally. Not even talking about title shots yet, just talking about growing, progressing, finding his ceiling, and wins and moments like this was going to help him. A trip over to the PI and getting assessed by some of the best people in the world, physios and sports scientists, and the level of training that you can get over there is only going to help Max grow into the potential that he's going to grow into as well. Andy, it was a wonderful performance from the SBG Charlestown, man. I'd say that.
Yeah, SBG Charlestown, man. Brilliant performance. Look, I think he showed his level in grappling here versus his opponent. Obviously, he got caught in a tricky spot. His opponent, looked to wrap up a choke early on, but Max stayed very composed. He fought his way up onto a single leg, got his own takedown, and from there, it was just clinical. Immediately took the back, looked for the choke, and very shortly after that was it. And when I think of Max, you often see influencers putting up these kind of cringy kind of cryptic posts where it'll be a meme of a beach or a sunset or something, and it's always it's not the destination, it's the journey. But I feel like Max actually embodies that when it comes to MMA. He lives and breathes MMA and learning MMA and taking every moment of it all in and not rushing his career. And I think it shows. I just think it has shown so far in his career that it just, I don't know, it makes it very fun to watch. It makes it, I don't feel the need to talk about, what you want next for Max Lally. I don't know if I care. Yeah. All I know is that I'm interested to see it.
Yeah, he's enjoying the journey. He's enjoying the process, and that's good to see as well. He's always very happy. He's always very content. He's always very down to earth. He's always very honest as well too. So, I mean, at 6-0 right now, obviously he gets over to the PI. It'll be another fight, hopefully on the next Dublin card as well. I'm excited to see what's next. I mean, he's one of
our... How long until we ask for Max Lally versus Caoilte, though?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, look at
I'm not asking for it. I'm actually not asking for it.
The two lads stay winning. I mean, it's inevitable, really. Which, good segue for the next fight we're going to talk about, I guess. And, two Irish fighters that did meet in the 145-pound division, Alex O'Sullivan versus Scott Harvey. A wonderful performance here from Alexander O'Sullivan. Andy, I thought it was mighty impressive. It was a grueling, fast-paced fight. It was over and back and clinching and knees and dirty boxing. And, O'Sullivan kind of flourished in that kind of environment, and Harvey was doing really well, kind of matching that level of intensity too. And, it was kind of O'Sullivan who just found the opening with the body shots, and I don't know, Scott Harvey kind of got hurt maybe he got hurt with some of the knees and shots to the body. I don't really know. It looks like something changed in his demeanor towards the end of the first round, and Alexander O'Sullivan got on top, got into the back mount, landed some punches, and I think the referee kind of made this look like a more dodgier stoppage than what it was. I think he came in and he hesitated, and then, but I think at the time when he was originally thinking about coming in, there was a lot of unanswered shots there that were landed from O'Sullivan, and I think that the stoppage was fair.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a bit of a weird stoppage, right? But definitely the right call in the end to stop the fight. And what a performance! Like what a statement win from Alexander O'Sullivan. You know, going into this behind the scenes, I'll only speak for my part in this, but like we're looking at this fight, and you could kind of see odds online, and Harvey was a big favorite coming into this. I think it was like 2 or 3 to 1. Alexander O'Sullivan was, and to be honest, I'll hold my hand up. I thought that's if you know. I didn't really know, but what I was kind of saying to people was, if you're pointing a gun to my head, I think Scott Harvey's going to win this fight. I thought he was going to maybe win a decision, and he looked really good early. It was, as you said, back and forth. The clinch battle was. You don't see a good old fashioned clinch battle in the open too often these days.
It was class to see.
Knees ripping to the body, uppercuts. It was brilliant. And Harvey, in my opinion, was getting the better of it. Although it was close, I thought Harvey was getting the better of it. But then, you know, a switch comes where Alexander O'Sullivan just starts to take over, and maybe just a case of he warmed down. He landed a big left hand, in fact, a couple of big left hands with about a minute to go. And from there, he just seemed to have really good success. He tied up Scott Harvey. He landed a knee of his own. He took him down. And from there, it was really surprising to me when I was watching backstage. I was like, it just felt like kind of Harvey had given up. But I think the reality was that O'Sullivan had just broken him down. And as you said, I don't know which shot it was, but something in there that O'Sullivan did just drained Harvey. And to go out there to take him out in a round, really impressive stuff in what was one of the most, you know, from a sporting perspective, competitive matchups on the card. And it did, although it was a first round finish, the first 3.5 minutes showed just how tight and competitive that fight was and how good both fighters are. And that, you know, a brilliant win for Alexander O'Sullivan. And yeah, just hats off to him. And look, I'm sure Scott Harvey will be back. But huge win for Alexander O'Sullivan.
Big win for him as well. And obviously, you know, some big fights ahead as he moves to 5-0. Scott Harvey took the first defeat of his career. He'll obviously be back as well. You know, you never know. There could be openings up there where we might see Scott Harvey down the line taking on other CMAC opportunities or opponents down the line too. Obviously, Kikyo getting the win too. We won't talk about Kikyo next. We will talk about Andreas Binder, who made his Cage Warriors debut against Auld Yassi, takes the win via second round KO. I mean, first thing I have to say about this fight was Auld Yassi was absolutely massive.
Unit.
Holy moly. And yeah, crazy size. And I think, you know, shows the power that Andreas Binder has going in there, Andy. I mean, he was rattling Yassi with it. I think, you know, a guy who wouldn't have been as big. I know this was a catchweight 175, but I don't see too many 170 pounders, you know, taking that level of power that Binder can bring. You know, I think he might have said it himself. I don't know whether it was with you or after that. He might have been just chasing it a little bit too much, I think. But he kind of got that composure and started landing those shots as well, mixing it up to the body too. And, you know, it was a wonderful performance. It was a great way to start your Cage Warriors debut. And, you know, he, like you said, he now is a major player in the welterweight division, the already stacked welterweight division in Cage Warriors. Whether people want to admit that or not, I think that's a fact.
No, yeah, definitely. I think really strong performance by him. Obviously, he was, you know, as you mentioned, Jassy kind of looked like the high school bully, like type character you'd see in one of these like American TV shows. Just a beautiful, huge unit of a man. And Binder, you know, looked a lot smaller than him, but I think he did a great job. He used his feints very well. I thought he was moving very well. I thought he, again, you know, Jas was kind of throwing these big looping wild shots, big body kicks with a lot of power behind them. And I think Binder had to be very careful for the first, you know, number of minutes in this fight. But ultimately, I think once he kind of got the reads on him. He kind of knew, like, if I can avoid this guy's big shots, the big danger, this is mine for the taking here. And again, it was a really weird one where, Jas was kind of accepting, like, Binder would drop him. I don't know how many times he dropped him with body shots and with shots to the head. And
Yas was trying to get him down to I think Yas was trying to get him
Jas
down.
was kind of playing into it, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was like not necessarily playing possum, because I think he was hurting, but he was, kind of just.
He was accepting the position, let's say.
Yeah, but he was wanting Andreas Binder to go into his guard, go in to try and maybe. I think he was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. We've seen that time and time again, and I think it was good level of fight IQ, even though the commentary team were wondering why he wasn't going in there. But it was like, well, I can understand that too. It's like when you're hurting a guy on the feet, there's no point in going down into his quote unquote world. You know what I mean? You can hurt him on the feet, get him back up, and that's it. Look at Andreas stayed patient and got the job done. So I think the decision to stay on the feet and not go down and follow him up, I think that's where, sometimes you could get caught in a submission, whether it would happen or not. You know that's definitely not going to happen if you're standing toe-to-toe with a guy that you've hurt multiple times. And it was only going to be a matter of time, Andy, before he did eventually get him out, because, there's only so many times you can kind of get dropped where the referee is going to look at it and make decision to step in.
I was actually told beforehand. I ran into some of his team and I was like, "Oh, what's the crack here? What's the game plan?" And it was literally said to me, like, he's been told, do not go into his guard. Do not. So when I was listening back and hearing the commentary, it's like, well, no, this is literally the game plan executed to perfection here. I know, as much as Reds here wanted him to pass guard and attack him that way, he was never going to do it. He was never going to do it because this was the game plan. And look, he eventually it just became too much for Jas. It was big shots he was landing, and eventually, Mark Goddard stepped in, and big pop from him. And he was a bit emotional after the fact, talking about I guess the relief of making the weight. Obviously, Jas was it was the opposite this time, where Jas was he was coming in basically heavy, and then the cash weight was agreed to, etc. And there was, I think, he had to weigh a certain amount of 177. But they accepted the fight. Obviously, he needed to get his foot in the door. And I think it's, he had that call at Giacomo Michelis after the fact, and that he wants to be in mixing it up. And I think he's a very interesting addition to this Cage Warriors welterweight division, because I think he doesn't really care, who he has to fight. I think he just wants to fight them all. And I think he backs himself and believes that he can go in and take any of these guys out there. So I think Binder is a brilliant addition in that regard. And I think, he's gone in here, he's got a big win, he's got his foot in the door. If he's immediately going in and looking for fights, and I'm told he's looking for a quick turnaround, he's trying to get on that Rome card in April. I don't know, let's see if that actually comes to fruition, or if he does end up getting a fight, who it's against. But if he goes in and starts fighting these, contenders who are on win streaks and Cage Warriors, that's going to shoot him right up towards the top of the division. So yeah, very interested to see. A solid performance from Andreas. Outclassed Jas, dropped him multiple times, gets the second round TKO, and he's back active. He's made the weight. Obviously, this was at as I said, not his fault that it's a catch. Maybe there'll still be commentary until we'll just wreck his head.
No, I'm not saying anything more about his weight.
Until Andreas Binder makes 170 pounds, I don't believe it. No, I'm only joking.
No, it's good. It's good. It was a good performance. I think we should concentrate on the performance. And it was a good way to get your foot in the door, like you said. And I think, he is going to be a major player in that 170-pound division. And I'm looking forward. Hopefully he can get a quick turnaround. I think quick turnarounds for him now, staying active, staying in camp, that's the way to go. I know he was very frustrated being away for quite some time outside of the cage as well. It was great for him to kind of come in, get the job done as well. Moving on to the lightweight division, Andy, Conor McCarthy. Oh, man. What a performance this was against Edison Silva. Cool, calm, composed, technical violence, beautiful jab, found the openings, found the finish, and there was no happier man in the RDS when the referee stepped in there after he landed that flurry towards the end of the fight. A wonderful body shot too that almost cut Edison in half. like, what can we say? The plaudits for Conor McCarthy are well deserved, and this guy, man, is unbelievable.
And he's been doing this since his amateur days. Like his body work. Am I about to? Is his body work the? Is I don't want to throw a big hyperbole, or his body work might be the best in Irish MMA. I'll say that. I think it's up there. Like I think when you see someone who just fucking targets the body and targets it efficiently and targets it ruthlessly,
it's good boxing. That's what it is.
But he's been doing this since his early amateur days, and he continues to, and you can see the boxing pedigree, and he just looks better and better with each fight, as you said. Conor McCarthy, blue chip prospects. We've got loads of prospects. I mean, this is Conor McCarthy, Keogh, Max Lally, Alexander O'Sullivan. You know, I'm trying to find all these undefeated guys who are just rising up. And look, you know, I don't think any of these guys, well, except for Alexander O'Sullivan here, I don't think any of them are fighting like the absolute best that the promotion have to offer right now.
Sure, they wouldn't be fighting them though, and they're only like, you know, they're early professionals.
No, I know. No, I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying, like, the body of work that they're putting on right now is.
I think the level of opponents that Conor McCarthy has fought now would be, you know, fairly high. You know, obviously, I think Pedro Silva now has a losing record, but you went out there, or not? Excuse me, Edison Silva. Is 6-6, so, but you know, it's an experienced opponent there as well. But you know, you go out there and you destroy a guy like that. I think it tells a story. So, you know, wonderful performance from McCarthy. I think, you know, he's going all the way to the very top, as a lot of the other prospects that you mentioned there as well. But I'm very excited to see what's next for him. You know, good luck trying to match him in future fights too. I can't imagine it's too easy of a task for Ian Dean as well. Before we wrap up, let's wrap up through the last couple of fights here. You know, obviously Keogh went out and put on a phenomenal performance. Got third round stoppage. Yeah, really, really good performance there as well. You know, we had a good KO win from Damian McKenna, also from Lewis Byrne as well against Dylan Logan. Kenny Makahana put on a wonderful performance. Well, put on a good performance. I think he was a little bit disappointed. I think there were certain stages of Kenny's performance where I felt that he chose to grapple when he could have struck. But, you know, I think it was important for him to go out there and get the win. Alex Keogh opened up the night with a sensational 24-second rear naked choke. You know, to summarize some of the performances on the rest of the card here, Andy, you know, what were your thoughts? Obviously, Alex Keogh opening up the card rather impressively, doing exactly what he's been doing at amateur level, man. This is, you know, he's been just going through guys like a hot knife through butter. I love the call, the taxi. But, you know, Kenny, Lewis, Damien, and Keith all put on fantastic performances as well. Huge night for Irish mixed martial arts and for prospects, established fighters, and, you know, debutants as well.
In the interest of time, I'll try fire through this because I noticing that tendency to fucking shite on and just go on these lengthy tirades. I mean, Alex Keogh, it's just really exciting to watch a guy like Alex Keogh break, you know, when you've seen him blitz through at amateur, and then, you know, it's hard to analyze anything of this performance other than just seamless, just completely seamless. He's only 20 years old, 24 seconds, a picture perfect, you know, pro debut. The taxi's outside, very appropriate nickname. You know, I agree with Ken, you know, Kenny, a bit harsh on himself. I thought very dominant, I suppose, first two, or very clear very clear first and second round from him. So did a good job. I was impressed by Lewis Byrne. Dylan Logan, you know, Lewis Byrne's the power that he possessed in that right hand to drop Logan early. Dylan Logan, I know he's 5-4 going into this, but a really tricky operator, an experienced guy. You know, this isn't no pushover whatsoever, and was coming in. You know, I think he was looking tricky off his back. He obviously he was looking for a sub of his own at one point. Obviously, the crucifix position came in the end for Byrne. Great job there, finishing the fight. And what I loved seeing from Keogh was just a bit like we had with Max Lally in his previous fight against Ben Ellis, where he had to bite down on the gum shield. We saw that from Keogh in this fight. We saw, you know, him really have to kind of go to a depth that he maybe didn't have to, or he hasn't had to go to so far in his pro career and possibly even in his amateur career. But a really great performance again. I like the nickname Freak Show. I hadn't heard it before. But some really, really great stuff here. And Keith, I just say as well, he's got a personality about him. People connect with him, they relate to him. Himself, Max, himself and Max, kind of those young crop, they're the two that kind of stand out to me right now as fans really kind of rallying in around behind. So very interesting, very exciting times. And yeah, a load of great fights. I don't know, I'm worn out even talking about it.
That's it, Andy. I thought you were going to get a bit more there. I set you up. I think if we were to wrap it all up here, overall, I think a big milestone for Irish mixed martial arts with everybody being on show. Obviously, having the big card, big event, the setting to showcase Irish mixed martial arts. I think it's a good time for Irish mixed martial arts right now. A really, really good time. And we're in for a very interesting next couple of years as well, with the level of talent that has been produced. And that we're on show in Cage Warriors as well. Are you feeling happy? You feeling confident? Are you feeling excited about what's coming ahead? We can expect probably 2 more big Cage Warrior shows this year. And a couple of opportunities you would imagine coming for Irish fighters in the Dana White's Contender Series as well. Paul Hughes fighting up in Belfast.
Ian
Gary. Ian Gary looking that he's going to be next in line for Islam Makhachev.
He's in Georgia. He's in Georgia.
So I mean, it's a solid time for Irish mixed martial arts right now, isn't it?
Brilliant. Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited. I mean, geez, I hope we get that Ian Gary Islam Makhachev fight. Paul Hughes returns. Looking forward to seeing that. The Thursday. I think that the Thursday is a bigger issue than the time with that card. If that was a Friday, I don't think anyone would be complaining about the time. No. It's a little bit not ideal with the time.
Like I said on Twitter when it was announced, I said there could be a few sick days called in on the Friday after that card.
A lot of sick days. But I mean, like, to get, I don't think very clearly, like, his vlogs and stuff, like, he was not expecting to get another hometown fight. So this is another big night for Belfast coming up. Be very interested to see who's on the card. Obviously, Derek Kelly has been announced on that card. We've got a lot of other fighters, Kieran Clark and Owen Sheridan, and a variety of other fighters. I've heard of that's not over the line. I've heard of a bit of a domestic showdown.
There's a doozy incoming
coming up on that card. So I'd say look out for that.
Not totally finalized yet, but
no, I don't think so. It's in the works, as they say. So we'll say
heavily in the works there. So definitely going to be excited about that one too. Yeah. So it's good to see another show. Like, I mean, we had the Cage Warriors. We're back up in Belfast now in April. It's not going to be too far away. We'll have another Cage Warriors show, coming again in around the summertime as well. So
it'd be interesting to see if they do 3 arena now.
It will. I think now is the time, isn't it?
I think I'd like to see them give it a go. I'd like to see them give it a go.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be fully confident. They wouldn't sell out the big 3 arena, the 10K. But it'd be interesting to see, what they did with Reese when he fought what's his name? Jimmy. I was about to say Jimmy Manoa. Jimmy Wallhead. He wasn't fighting Jimmy Manoa, Jesus.
No, I wouldn't.
But yeah, be interesting to see. So
yeah, it will. Look, that's it for episode 101. We'll wrap it up. We did, we got into Cage Warriors 200, which was the plan any which way. Obviously lots of news on the PFL Belfast card. James Gallagher going to Ryzen. We're fighting championships, which is happening right now as we're recording. And lots of a couple of other Cage Warriors fights. Darragh Ward was announced for a fight as well, along with Damien McGuigan. So exciting signing to Cage Warriors too. Just a quick summary. We're not forgetting about anything. We just wanted to concentrate on Cage Warriors 200. We will be back. Where will Caoilte be in the world on the next episode? We don't know. It'll be lots of fun-filled adventures. He's going to try and
we need him
join us.
back, to be honest. I feel like I've had a poor show.
Don't be belittling. Don't be belittling yourself, Andy. We got her done 101. It was a good review of Cage Warriors. A good show, and we'll be back for episode 102. Any final words, Andy?
Gurv Miam. Oh, fuck.
Ron agus Gurv Mahagud
Gurv Miam Mahagud agus Slán Gafal.
We need Quilcha back for that. Love it. Take care, everybody.